Women empowerment, though such a powerful topic, gets used very loosely in today's time, where everyone talks about the subject without even understanding the true crux of the term. Well, the aim is to reach out to women and men from modern families to stand up against stereotypes and take a pledge to claim and give their partners their deserving share in a relationship and society. The issue being very close to Benetton, the brand has been promoting it through its women empowerment programs, 5 key efforts: sustainable livelihood, non-discrimination and equal opportunities, access to health, quality education, and the end of every form of violence against women around the world. Well, in the world we live in today, do you think that we are justifying the term women's empowerment? Meghna, let's start with you.
Justifying as in, we definitely don't have equality for women, right?
Still in our country, or anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world. I mean, we always say women's rights is really about human rights, right? And if you just go through the list of human rights and you kind of compare that with what rights women have, you find there's a huge disparity. A simple example, it's not confined to rural areas or certain areas of the world. It's across all spectrum, all strata of society. A simple example, women in India after marriage. I know of so many women who have to take permission from their in-laws to go and visit their own parents after marriage, which is a basic violation, violation of a fundamental right to freedom of movement, which is a basic human right, right? So the disparities are huge, and there's a lot of work that all of us have to do, men and women together, to kind of create that equal society that we all aim for.
So Gul, more questions are coming to my mind from what you said, but I'll stay back. Gul, what do you feel about this?
I don't think it's possible to disagree with anything that Meghna said, because we do live in a society that's very, very unequal. And I think 2 additional factors in the Indian society actually make it a further, perhaps deadlier cocktail than anywhere else. And one is that patriarchy in the Indian society is all-pervasive. It's perpetuated largely by the female half of the population as well, which is what makes it even more dangerous, because the best way of ensuring something goes on forever is if you get the victims themselves to propagate it. So we're extremely patriarchal, and in fact, preference for male children is still at an all-time high in I would say more than 80% of India. A lot of us sitting here may not agree with that thought, but that's not the reality of India. The second thing is, I don't think we've actually had a women's rights movement, or, in Meghna's words, a uniform human rights movement, or a civil rights movement for that matter. In the West, for instance, in the UK and in the US, you had a suffragist movement where women actually had to fight for the right to political equality and fight for the right to vote. They were actually beaten to ask for the right to vote. Now, we never had that sort of a movement in India. And therefore, at some level, a lot of the liberties that we have theoretically, which are namely theoretical equality in terms of access to opportunity legally, socially, politically, economically, access to healthcare and education, were just sort of handed to us on a platter. And because we, to some extent, didn't fight for them, we don't end up enforcing them. In fact, the inheritance laws were amended about a couple of years ago to make sure that the girl child also has an equal right to ancestral property. But that's again a right that's not enforced, because it was not a right that women fought for. There were a few women that fought for it. Of course, they filed petitions, and therefore the law was revised. But as such, there hasn't been a mass outpouring of women together to fight for their rightful place, which means accepting that we are different from men and that we have our own special skill set physiologically, but also that we deserve equality in the eyes of law. And I think that fight hasn't happened, which is probably why we're still lagging in inequality.
Lots of women getting together. So, Kalki, do you want to add something to that? And also, I mean, just picking up from what both of them said, that we're talking about women empowerment. The sense I'm getting, and also something I strongly feel, that women themselves have to get that empowerment within themselves and feel empowered to come out.
Just picking up from what Gul was saying is that, this idea that women need to be seen as equal in the eyes of the law. I think one of the big problems we have is that we have religious law, right, for different religious groups. So a woman who's Muslim will have different rights of divorce than, a woman who's secular, and this allows for a huge amount of unfairness that is seen very often in our society. You have your neighbor who's not getting the same rights as you are, even though you're both women. So I think the idea of a uniform civil code is very, very important, and will take things a lot further. And what were you just saying now?
I'm talking about a woman feeling empowered enough to go
Yeah,
out there and
I
say
think
that
the
I deserve an
psyche-
equal space,
Sorry. I think the psyche right now of women is still under a lot of fear, the kind of violence that we see towards women keeps us afraid. And so, for example, if you are having a fight at 3 in the morning, you're not going to step out of your house. A man might, and that really, that literally, physically keeping yourself indoors because of fear that is perpetuated by media, by the society, and is really, really strong and prevalent here. And I think it's really important that we consciously, as women, step out of our way to break those barriers. So there's something called Why Loiter, which is run by a friend of mine. It's like women taking public spaces, going out at 10 o'clock at night to a park in a group and hanging out. We see men hanging out, smoking a cigarette outside, but we never see a bunch of women doing that. So reclaiming public spaces, making an effort. I'm not saying go out and put yourself in danger 3 in the morning, walk on your own or whatever, but find ways to find that confidence again. Come together as women, do things as groups of women, build up the sisterhood, all that stuff.
I love Violet. Kalki introduced it to me a few years ago, and it's a really fantastic concept. Moving on to you, Sandeep, tell us about what do you feel? I mean, I know Benetton has this whole campaign going on, but personally, I mean, with your upbringing and your just seeing women in India.
Personally, I will. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So I will actually take on from what Kalki said when she was addressing you. For a country's growth, we always talk about, the country has to grow, this is the GDP and all. The most important thing is if the women is empowered, you'll see a significant contribution coming towards country growth on an automatic basis. My personal experience, I've been very lucky and privileged that the family in which I've been born and brought up was always, I could see the women being empowered. And right from my grandmother who had to move along with my dad and other kids at the time of partition during the partition time from Pakistan to India now. So I could see a family evolution which was much better where the women were empowered as compared to my relatives and society around where I could see a big gap where the women were not empowered. So I've been right from my childhood, my sister, my wife, my mother, I've seen because they were empowered during the journey of life. I see the family evolution is much better as compared to where you see women are not empowered. So for me, it's something which is very close to my heart. It's something which I see on a daily basis, and that's why one is I'm working for this brand, so I want to contribute towards that. But as a citizen of this country, I feel this is the best way to actually help country grow. If you work on women empowerment and if you make it happen in the right way, you may invest here, you may get foreign institution investment, everything can happen. But if this section of population is not empowered, all those things would not add the kind of dimension which this element can add. That's how I look at it.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, just talking about workspaces now, I mean, three of us have worked in a common workspace and we see how many women sometimes are present, and hats off to many of you who have to do scenes in the presence of so many men around in the workspaces that we work. Gul, you and me have been part of 2 films ourselves. Meghna, what about a corporate space? You being a woman at Scoop Whoop. I mean, I'm thinking Scoop Whoop is still quite progressive, but if you have spent some time in any other corporate space.
So I've actually been, I mean, Scoop Whoop, like you said, we are, our point of view has always been to not just be mindful of these things, but
First, let me point out, I don't think I've ever met a man from Scoop Whoop. I've met only the women.
It's highly female dominated.
Yes, it is. Yeah, actually, we actually do have a half-half. So half our editors are women
men are
and half
hiding.
are men. So yeah, and we actively champion the cause. So we're not just mindful. We are champions of equal rights across groups, women, LGBT, etc., etc. So that way, I mean, that's I'm privileged to work in a place like that. But also, I have been, in a sense, lucky, and also, I guess, sort of created that space. Since I've been working in media and advertising and all of that, it's a different kind of culture there, right? So while a lot of the daily sexism that happens in corporates does exist, we do get the benefit, I guess, of being a more sort of open workspaces than very, very corporatized environments. And, so I think that way I have been lucky because I've worked in those industries. But I see it every day in other work spaces, where the gender pay gap is very real. There is
the pay gap
yes,
also.
the wage gap is very real. Also, because what happens is that women, it comes from how you value yourself, right? So you don't tend to be as great negotiators as men when it comes to pay. And that is something that we've seen across, not just
Again,
India.
coming back to the point
Yeah.
about a woman feeling deserving enough
Yeah.
herself. Does
Yeah.
she feel deserving enough that I can't ask for so much?
Yes.
It's a man's sort of
Yeah.
privilege to do
No,
that.
I don't think it's a man's thing that comes into your head, but it's just how you value
Conditioning.
yourself.
I think it's your
Yeah,
conditioning,
it's your conditioning.
and ultimately, sorry to interrupt, but I completely agree with what Meghna is saying. I think at a large level, our social conditioning, our cultural conditioning from a very young age limits our potential in terms of what we think of what is possible. So it starts right in around class 8, 9, beta arts loge ke science loge, girl not take arts or commerce. It's that conditioning as to why would you not take science because you can't do science? No, I don't think that's correct. And if there is a two-wheeler that has to be bought, the boy will get the gear wala and the girl will get the non-gear. I mean, once you're riding a bike, you're a rider. Kalki is a
Both
big ass
riders,
rider.
all three riders.
Once you're riding and the two wheels are in momentum, it's about balance. It's not about changing gears. But these small stereotypical conditionings from a very early age allow you to undervalue yourself because you feel maybe मैं इतने ही काबिल हूँ, बस this much only I can do, this much. And probably that's what.
And actually, it starts even younger. Look at preschoolers. Look at the kind of when you go to give gifts to young children. Typically you go to a gift shop, you'll see the kind of gifts that they recommend you give a girl child as opposed to what you give a boy child. I've had people, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I've had guys in the gift shop tell me, नहीं ये drilling kit तो boys के लिए है, और हाँ तो आपको cooking set चाहिए. So I'm like, no, I don't want to.
That's very interesting because I was in the airport just about a week, 10 days ago, and I was I stopped to buy my niece and my nephew a gift, and I asked 5-year-old girl, and he straight away took me to the cookery sort of section, and he said, "Sir, cooking set."
And we'll be all pink.
So I said, she's not that kind of 5-year-old girl. She needs rollerblades or something. Can I get one of those things? Kalki, we'll move on to you. Are you Indian, French? I mean, because you're born here, and I think you may have.
When I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Okay, yeah.
Long live identity crisis.
I think she's definitely a French-looking girl with an Indian heart.
I'm fully Indian, but I'm obviously fully French. I keep saying my skin is white, my heart is brown. I really, I'm born here, brought up here, all my life I've been here. But of course, I've also had like a lot of.
So we can
influence.
safely call you reverse coconut.
Yes, that's perfect. I like it.
So tell us, what was it like being? I don't know if that's really a racist sort of remark, but being a white-skinned girl in growing up in India and a woman also. What was it like? Any experiences?
I really was this odd kid because I had really blonde hair as a kid and white, and I was in a small village called Periyamudalya Chavadi. So everyone.
Even I can't say that.
South Indian proper, for me it was. I think as a very young child, I don't remember being discriminated by the other kids. I think it was more the adults and how adults looked at you and separated you. And of course, with puberty and everything, you being the white girl, when my friends and I would go to Kovalam beach or, one of these hippie areas, it was always me who got asked for the drugs or, hit on by the guy because I was, seen as that Baywatch ladki or whatever. They have a reference of what a white girl should be like. So I had to, and then I would like give it back, in Tamil, and they would be like, "Yopa." Then they'd get even more excited, which was not good. So I had to fight my way through that stereotype. But I think even whatever your skin color, just being a girl, the gaze is so strong in India, the male gaze. You're constantly thinking about how you're stepping out. When I go to New York in the summer, I don't need to wear a bra. And it's such a liberating feeling, And here, I mean, you won't even think of it. You limit yourself all the time because, okay, I'm going to Lucknow. Okay, I'm going to take my salwar, So we have to limit ourselves because of things, but in a way, I also think you have to consciously make an effort to be like, no, okay, I have to be sensible, but I also have to be myself, and draw some lines there and push those limits of who you are, what you want to represent. I think it's really a constant effort for a woman to have to do that.
Sandeep, moving on to you. I mean, you said you grew up in a family of very empowered women, so I'm sure. I mean, even if I don't know where you grew up. Which city did you grow up in?
So I was born in Bhopal and my dad was in PHL. So
I mean, this is pertaining to the whole country. I mean, you see it all the time, where women are suppressed or an incident, something that you want to talk about, and especially being from an empowered house where you have women who are so powerful, so strong. I grew up with a lot of powerful, strong women around me, and some of the things that used to happen around me used to really bother me. Yeah.
So for me, I would like to give two examples. One was where it's a very positive example, and this happened just a month back when I was in Punjab. So my grandparents are in Punjab. So my Mausi, my aunt actually, she's invested close to, let's say, 50 lakhs per granddaughter. She has two granddaughters. Both of them have gone to Canada for studies. And she was talking to them. I just went, I went because it's very difficult to get time. So I'd gone to, my mother was there, so I had to go and get her back. So I entered the house and she was talking to a granddaughter in Canada. She's studying there. She's working at airport during 3 hours what she get. And they was asking, why did you send your granddaughters to Canada? You are living in a very small village in Punjab wherein everybody is looking at marrying of the daughters after some basic education and all. She said, I'm very clear, for me, because she herself was a librarian. And she is very clear in a thought that for a family evolution to happen in the right way, it's very, very important that everyone is empowered. So two granddaughters, she's invested close to 1 crore on them because the study, that's the kind of amount you have to invest when the kids have to go and study in Canada. And then she was talking to them, finish a study, and then you have to get you have to apply for your medicine course in US. So, sitting in a small corner in Punjab, I could see a woman empowering, a lady who is around 75, 80 is empowering her granddaughters because she believes that, she may have another 10, 15 years, but she wants the family evolution forever to happen in a very, very positive way. This is a very happy, positive example. There are examples where I could see one side of my relative, really not allowing the daughters to study and then marrying them off. And then you see, when you speak to your cousin sisters, when you go and talk to them, you feel, okay, they were here, they lived a life, but not a kind of life.
Let's stick to happy stories. Let's stick to good stories
and
powered
in fact,
stories.
When we were discussing this campaign, I said, this is a very happy example on this. Please, do something around this. And this is all, So we were looking at examples, positive example, because that's how we want to convey to the audience that, we have to contribute. Today, talking is something, but eventually, as a brand, as a citizen of the country, we have to do our bit. And that's very important.
So Gul, are you contributing to any of these positive examples in Punjab, since you contest? It's like a political sort of question.
But actually,
you can just throw me off the stage if you want to.
There's some background to that. About around the time that we wrapped turning 30, I was at my village, which is in district Fatehgarh Sahib. Sandeep would know that. And I, was talking to the local DC. We were having a conversation about what's going on, and I was shocked to find out that my district, as per the 2001 census, had the lowest sex ratio in all of India.
Wow.
And that somehow, I was 30 then, and it really shook me up, because here I was with all the opportunity in the world, from this village, and I didn't seem to think there was anything in the world that could limit me. And yet the same district that I belonged to, Fatehgarh Sahib, had the lowest sex ratio. And that really got me anxious and stressed, and I figured I need to do something about it. And that's when I set up this foundation called the Colonel Shamsher Singh Foundation. It was named after my grandfather, who was then living. And because I just felt, if nothing else, I need to start doing something about it. It's called, what I call it, the guilt and privilege that one carries of accident of birth. Because if it weren't for accident of birth, I probably would have been born in a different home in the same village Mahadiya, and maybe I would have been producing a lot of girls trying to try for a boy, or maybe worse, not letting them be born. And that was the reality of that area. Fortunately for us, and not because of anything that society at large has contributed to, but another district has now beaten us, so we're no longer the lowest sex ratio in the country. But that for me was the inflection point where I decided to get down and do something about it in my own limited capacity, because I felt the accident of birth was the reason where I was, not because of there being a uniform playing field. So that's, we work specifically on gender equality. We take accomplished women like Meghna, like Kalki, to talk to women in villages and try and explain to them that, look, this can also be your breadwinner. This can also be your support, because a large reason that unfortunate things like female feticide exist is because A, dowry. It's a very, very big part of the reality in the north of India. And B, because they feel when they grow old, who'll take care of them. And the whole idea is to try and reach out to them. We do public-private partnership with the district health authorities to try and get this message across. It's a long message going, but yes, I think it's beginning to show results. A lot of people are now investing in education. There is a man in my village who is a daily wage mason, and I got chatting with him. There was some work going on. I was at the village again for some foundation work. And so I said, what's going on? Catching up in Punjabi. So he said, I want to marry my daughter, and the family that we identified, because it's so rare to find an eligible bachelor in Punjab today who's not addicted to drugs. So he said, I found this boy, but he wants a Scorpio. So he said, you know what? I'm going to raise that money, but I'm going to send my daughter to study with that money. So he was also looking for ways in which to send his daughter overseas, and he was trying to work things out, and then there were other NGOs that stepped forward to help. But here is a man who understood the requirement that rather than raise all this money and go into debt, I'm a daily wage mason, I might as well raise this money and invest in my daughters rather than buy that Scorpio, which will not achieve much.
Stories that still exist in our country. So I'm going to open it up to all you guys. Anyone wants to ask any of our panelists any questions, want to say anything about? There you go, great.
मेघना जी, आपसे क्वेश्चन ये है कि क्या ये ज़्यादा नहीं हो गया, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट जेंट्स के लिए बढ़ गई है? जिधर जाओ आज इवेंट पे देख लीजिए, 8 से 10 लड़कियां काम कर रही हैं, जेंट्स को बेचारों को काम नहीं मिल रहा है। ये भी हो गया है कि किधर भी गैलरी में जाओ आपको लेडीज ही मिलेंगी हर जगह। Why injustice to men? Especially in metropolis and all.
I don't have the figures, but I'm pretty certain that that's not the case, where unemployment is tilting towards men more than it is towards women. And in fact, there was a recent study that more women are getting into secondary education and colleges, but more women are dropping out of the workforce than in the last 10 years. There's been a huge jump. So from 2005 to now, more women are leaving the workforce in India. So about 49% of rural women were working in 2005, and the percentage is now around 36. So I'm like I said, I'm certain that that's not the case. And anyways, I think the discussion today is about how we can sort of achieve a balance between the two. It's not really, and that's never the intention to do men versus women. That's very juvenile, and that's not the idea. The idea is to look at how we can create an equal society, which is empowering for everybody. Right? So
and other thing, there is a case going, many cases going on in our society, in our Biradari also. so much power is given to women that on her saying, their full family is being imprisoned unnecessarily without
I'll take
asking.
that, actually.
Please,
So,
anybody can.
Sir, you're referring to Section 498 of the Indian Penal Code, which is no doubt a very powerful piece of law. And I'm going to try and answer it as honestly as I can. There is misuse of 498, and there's no doubt about that. And it's unfortunate. But the number of people who've actually been benefited by 498 in rural areas, where women are in a very poor position in the home of their husband because of exactly dowry, is very disturbing. Now, is the law misused? Yes. But is it required? Also yes. I think when the lawmakers get together to make a law, and this is of course based on the founding principles of the modern state, when social contract of Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau, which is what laid the foundation of the modern day state system, was the greater good. So are you trying to benefit more people or harm more people? If there is a law that actually achieves greater good with some unfortunate cases of misuse, I think it works out in balance. However, on the cases of misuse, there has been some efforts of a lot of NGOs to try and make those found guilty of misuse punishable and culpable under newer laws that are being made, which are going to be annexures to that particular law. So the punishment and culpability for those who misuse sections like the 498 should be very high, so other educated women, because it's the educated ones that are using it, don't use it.